All right, we did not have any closed session this evening, so we will go right into starting off with our agenda, approval of our agenda. And I don't have any changes or anything for the agenda, so it stands as is. So I need a motion to.
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
So we have a first by trustee Cooper, a second by trustee Scott. All in favor to approve the agenda? 7-0. Thank you. For our consent agenda, which is next, and this is public comment for consent, and I do have a blue card for one item. I have a blue card for 10C. But also, if you want to speak to anything not on the agenda, you may fill out a blue card, which is located right over there on that cart, and bring it up to Sally, and we will put you where you need to be in order to speak, either for an item or for not an item. And you have 3 minutes to do so, to speak on that item. So we will be pulling then 10C, because I do have a comment on that. Also at your board table is 10D, the MOU was not attached on agenda line. This is not anything new. This is a reoccurring MOU that we have with Hamilton School and Virginia Bassey, which is a partners program that's over there. So it's nothing new to us. If you would like us to pull it and bring it back next time so you have a chance to look at the MOU, we can do that. It's up to the board. That's 10D. So like I said, I'm pulling 10C because of the public comment. Is there anything else that anybody else needs pulled to review?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like the 10D to
10D,
come back
okay.
so we can take the time to look at it.
Okay, come back. So we'll
Yeah.
pull that and bring that back.
Thank you.
For the next meeting, which will be in September.
Madam President, I'll make a motion for the consent agenda excluding item 10C and 10D.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor to approve the consent with those amendments? Okay, thank you. 7-0. And 10C, let me just make sure. We're going to have to wait. The public comment, we won't be doing that until at the very end of the meeting. Maybe are you okay in waiting or, okay. I'll see if I can move things around a little bit, but hang in there, okay. Board announcements, sorry, I gotta catch up here. Board and superintendent announcements. Trustee Miller, do you have any announcements?
I attended the opening day activities Monday morning and said hello to
Great.
staff and welcome them back. So, and they're going to be meeting with our students here pretty quick.
Thank you. Trustee Nell?
Yeah, I also attended the kickoff on Monday morning, and I did also take the time to attend the the National Equity Project training at the Quest Church on last Thursday and Friday. Good experience. It was primarily staff from Novato High School, and it's a good opportunity to meet some of our new faces and to work with our teachers for 2 days. So it was very positive. And I just want to thank everyone for helping to get the schools open and raring to go, and look forward to another school year. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Aguila?
Yes, just wanted to welcome everybody for back to school and remind us about some of the safety issues that we should all be aware of. Everybody should have gotten hopefully a letter or an email from our police here in Novato, and just reminding us about the school buses and some of the rules. So any questions, go see them or talk to them or call them. People walking, people on bikes, parking, let's be considerate, let's be good neighbors. And I also attended on the 16th the National Equity Workshop at the Quest, packed full of Novato High School staff, and Superintendent Jim Hoku was there, and Derek. So it was a good workshop. Some of it was a reminder, which is always good to have, and we're moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. San Marin had it also, right? We keep saying Nevada, but San Marin did it as well, the equity too. Okay, yeah. Yeah. But San Marin was hard at work as well, but they were at a different location. Trustee Mack.
Just one thing, I did go to the kickoff, and just want to tip my hat to Jim, for getting out there a little bit. And also, I just thought it was a great event. Having Nina speak was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean that just touched my heart, and just well organized. And I think we got everybody off very, all together now type of mode. I think I was very pleased. I thought it went really well.
Trustee Cooper?
I attended the kickoff as well, and yeah, Jim, you did a fantastic job, and no one knows what that's all about, but you did great. I'm proud of you. School looked great, by the way. San Marin looks awesome. Just a reminder to all of us that this coming Thursday, the superintendent trustee dinner is at 5:30 down at Rancho Nicasio, and you will have to RSVP, and I can send you the link if you want. Anybody?
If you'd resend it.
Okay. Okay. 5:30.
Thanks. Trustee Scott?
Well, I don't have any
Welcome
updates because
back.
I've been out of town,
Wow,
so
good for
thank
you.
you.
I just have one thing. I did also go to the rally, the Welcome Back rally, which is great. And I told Leslie it was probably one of the better, not better, but it was just really inspiring and done very well. And Leslie, you put a lot of work into that, I know, putting it together. So thank you very much. And Jim, that was interesting. Yes.
In light of Maria's comments, we have a train running through town now, which is different than we've had before.
Yeah.
Students from Olive School cross those tracks, and students from Hamilton School cross those tracks. And I think it'd be worthwhile to make sure that we have an extra, I'll pay a little attention to make sure the students get double trained on proper
Or
train
reminder
safety.
about safety around a train or something that
It's
the
new for
sites could
Novato,
send.
and thank God we haven't had any issues
Yeah.
today, but I would.
Yeah.
I know something went out
Our
district-wide, right?
Yeah, we-
But
Our
maybe the
superintendent-
sites do it specifically with their. Okay, oh, okay.
Superintendent wrote a letter also
Yeah.
to the parents, so
Yeah.
that was good.
Thank you, Trustee Miller.
I just-
The other thing I went to last night, even though I don't have any kids at Novato, was the MSA orientation. I just wanted to kind of see what the new but the new assistant principal over there running MSA, and there's some new staff members, just to see how it would roll out and how they did it. And it was done very well. The feedback I've been getting is very positive. The few parents that I spoke to there, and it was just nice to see everybody come together and kick off the year for MSA, and everybody obviously is very excited about that program and everything. So that was it. Just Superintendent Hogaboom.
Thank you, President Butler. So yeah, welcome everybody. And I think there's a really good vibe in the district this year, a lot of enthusiasm. We have a lot of new people that are bringing great skill sets and a different way of looking at things to us, which is fantastic. Just so you know, on Monday after the Welcome Back rally, secondary teachers met in groups with facilitators in their subject matters to go over the graduate profile and to look at the rubrics that we have developed for those and how they might use those for probably the first hour. And then the second hour, we really looked at learning targets that we're developing in all of our subject matter areas, which used to be called power standards, which are the most important parts of the curriculum. So we're identifying those. Different departments are in different places. Math is almost completely done. Science has been doing a lot of work. Other areas have a little more work to do. And once we identify those learning targets, then we come up with performance assessments and benchmark assessments for those. So that's really the work that's happening in secondary this year, is around that. In elementary, we had different kind of topics that were put together for our new reading and writing workshop curriculum. And some of our schools, primarily San Ramon and Pleasant Valley, have been using that Lucy Calkins program already for the last couple years. So they went to some more advanced trainings. Other teachers are newer to it. And just a lot of thanks to Amanda Davis, who's our reading specialist, and really put together a lot of trainings with all the new curriculum for the new teachers, which are these huge, there's all these reading books and all this kind of materials that's out there, but we haven't had this in a long time, and super excited for everybody to be on the same page with reading and writing now. And that's where really the elementary teachers went to, and some went all day. And then most of the schools have been having their staff meeting either Monday afternoon, or some of them were this morning. Some of the schools are using the Indigo survey with their staff, so they can kind of find out what their learning styles and things are and how they work together. So they did that at Linwood, at Rancho, at Pleasant Valley, and I think that might be it. So that was a great kind of training for them. I went to Nevada High yesterday in the afternoon. That was great. Mark Sims was on fire today at San Marin with their staff coming together. So our Debbie Richardson over at San Jose, Amy was there this morning. So they're just doing a great job, and again, a really good feel to the district. Lastly, and maybe most importantly, I'd like to introduce you to our new principal at Nevada High School, Mark Brewer, and I'll have him come up in just a minute. Mark spent a lot of his time in Colorado, where he was a science teacher at the middle school and the high school. Then he became principal at Lewis Palmer High School in Colorado, and then locally came out to American Canyon High School to open that high school in 2009. So he was there for 6 years and did a fantastic job. Then he went down to Pajaro Valley Unified School District for the last couple of years and as assistant superintendent, but really had a desire to get back to the high school, back to working on a campus with school students, that he missed the students and missed the activity at the high school. And so we're thrilled to have Mark with us. I just want to read one short thing that that one of his superintendents said, which is over in Napa. On a personal level, Mark is a genuinely honest leader who is always visible, accessible, positive, and encouraging. He is a model for personal integrity. Mark has exceptional communication skills, dignifies others, and promotes the leadership potential of aspiring administrators. Mark has garnered the respect and confidence of his colleagues, from principals to members of the Board of Education. Mark's professionalism and vigilance for focusing on what is most important has been a tremendous asset to the Napa Valley School District. And one of the main reasons we hired Mark was really his ability to bring people together. He's a really strong relator. He's a people person. He's a collaborative leader. He will work with the teachers, the parents, the staff to bring people together. So we've had a lot of innovative programs at Nevada High School, and we need to make sure that we kind of work all those out. And I can't think of a better person than Mark to come and do that, and we've been really thrilled with him so far. So Mark, do you want to come on up and say a few words to us?
Mic already on? It is? Oh, very good. Well, thank you so much for that. I just want to tell you what a great, warm welcome the staff's provided me the last couple days. It's been really inspiring. They're excited to change and move forward at that school and really eager to do good work. So it's been a great welcoming. I know where my office is. I can drive to the school. I just got here Saturday, but it's been a great 2 days, and I'm really looking forward to working with the school. I met with the student leadership students this morning in the government class, and they were fantastic. I just allowed them time to ask me questions about me and what I'm about, and they had some really good questions. So it was good to meet them and good to meet the staff, and I'm really excited for a great school year, and I'm excited to be here in the Nevada Unified School District and working with you as board members and Jim and his team, and it's really re-inspired me and re-engaged me in the process, so I'm super excited and privileged and honored that you would select me to have this position, and I'm really looking forward to starting the school year off in a really good way and continuing the work. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to, I have no non-agenda public comment. No, I don't have a blue card or anything. So let's move on to our pre-station. Tonight we have 10,000 Degrees here this evening, so I don't know what the, oh, Jen's gonna kick it off. All right, great.
It is with great honor that I introduce 10,000 Degrees team today. 10,000 Degrees is an organization that works with our students to not only ensure that they have the support and resources they need to access college, but they also, and I really admire, they look beyond that. It's access to college, but then also the completion of college, and how are we preparing our students to not only get there, but also to get through and persevere and get to the end goal there. So tonight, the team is here. I just found out that this is the first time they've presented to you, and so I'm so excited for you to hear about everything they've been doing in our schools and all of the successes that I think you actually have in front of you. So I want to, because he's not going to be coming up, I do want to introduce, this is Alex Stern, and he's been working with us for some years now. And then I believe Gracie is going to join me up here at the mic. So Gracie Francisco is our program manager. And then we have 3 of our College Access Fellows that work with our students, Sophia Martinez, Jane Rivas, and Gladys Cortez. So come on up. Thank Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. I'm going to do some clicking here. So briefly, we're going to introduce ourselves before we tell you a little bit more about our program. Like Jen mentioned, my name is Gracie Francisco, and I'm actually new to Novato. I've been working with 10,000 Degrees for 4 years now, but I'm actually an alum of the program as well. I've been working with San Rafael City Schools for the last 3 years, and I'm actually going to be shifting my role a little bit to be working with them as well as with you all. And one of our hopes is really to streamline the programming that we're doing for all students in these two districts. So I'm super excited, and I'm going to have my team introduce themselves as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Gladys Cortez. I'm actually a NUSD graduate. I went to Linwood, San Jose Middle School, and then graduated from Novato High School in 2012. After graduating from high school, I went to College of Marin and then transferred to UC Berkeley, where I got my degree in cognitive science with an emphasis in education. And I've been working with the ELD students at Novato High School, San Marin and Marin Oaks for the past 1.5 years.
Hi everyone, my name is Sofia Martinez and I am a Metas Fellow alongside Gladys. So I actually went to NUSD for a part of my education as well. I went to Linwood, then San Jose, and then I did a year at Novato High School. I was part of the MSA program for the time that I was there. And then I went over to Valley Oaks in Petaluma, went to Santa Rosa Junior College, and graduated with a degree in sociology from UC Berkeley.
And hello everyone, my name is Jane Rivas, and I am the College Access Fellow at Novato Schools, and I sadly was not an alum of the program. I'm from Los Angeles, so I went to high school down there, but I came up to NorCal to go to UC Santa Cruz, and I've stayed in NorCal since then. This is my 3rd year working at NUSD, so I'm super excited to just continue my role and continue helping out the students.
And we hear you'll have some time to ask questions later, so if you want to know more about us, you're welcome to ask. So briefly, I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about our program. For those of you who haven't heard of 10,000 Degrees or are not quite as familiar, we've actually been around for since 1981. We existed primarily as a scholarship organization when we first started, and then in 2000 was when we really switched to this college access and success programming that we're doing now, and definitely not in the capacity that we're in now until probably when Alex started here in Novato in 2010. Yeah, 2010. As you can see on our slides, our mission at 10,000 Degrees is to achieve educational equity and help students from low-income backgrounds to get to and through college, with an emphasis on the through piece, in order to positively impact their communities and the world. And our goals, which we've actually really been working on refining, are we really want to dramatically increase the baccalaureate attainment rate for our students from low-income communities and low-income backgrounds, specifically in California, and we're starting right here in our own communities. And 10,000 Degrees started in Marin County and then expanded to Sonoma, and in the last five years or so, we've expanded to the greater Bay Area. So we've got programming in Richmond and Contra Costa College. We are in San Francisco as of this year, as well as Napa. So we're really spreading out a little bit. So a couple things that we do, or things that are important to know about 10,000 Degrees. Like I said before, we focus on helping and supporting students from low-income backgrounds. And over 80% of our 10,000 Degrees students who start at four-year colleges graduate with their bachelor's degree, as opposed to the national rate, which is only 31%. We also help a lot of community college students. So a lot of our students start out at community colleges, and our transfer rate is 3 times the national average. And we have specific support teams, just like we do at the high schools, at our local community colleges. So Contra Costa, San Francisco City College, at College of Marin, Santa Rosa JC, we have teams of 10,000 Degrees staff there to help make sure that our students have the resources that they need to transfer successfully. Also, one thing that's really important to know about 10,000 Degrees is that we don't have a GPA requirement to get into the program, so we serve students across the whole spectrum, and that's something that makes us unique from some of the other college access organizations.
So 10,000 Degrees at Novato has 2 different programs, but I'm going to be talking about our Institute program specifically first. So what our Institute program is that I have a caseload of students here at Novato Unified School District schools, and I'm helping them specifically go through the application process, through the financial aid, and helping them before they move towards our College Success Program. At Novato, or all of the schools actually, they start out our summer intensive, which is our kickoff program, which is a 2-day, 1-night program at St. Mary's College, where we basically introduce them to 10,000 Degrees as a whole, but also the process that they're going to be starting in September. So from learning about their A through G's, financial aid, scholarships, the students get a basis there that we can then work on hands-on with them at the schools. Once the school year starts, we actually have our weekly meetings in addition to office hours at each individual high school. And luckily, with the collaboration and partnership we have at these high schools with the counselors, the College and Career Center, we're able to basically get to know our students on such a good level that we're able to help them throughout the entire process. And then once we pass them off, our program knows them and knows how to help them, regardless of whether they're starting at a community college or at a 4-year.
Thank you. Like Jane mentioned, there's two main programs here at Novato. Like she mentioned, she talked about the Institute, and the other one is the Metas program, formerly known as the EL program. And this is the program that is funded through the Haas Foundation in the partnership between NUSD and 10,000 Degrees to provide more resources for English language learners in high school. So this is a program that is for ELD students in 9th through 12th grade, and it's a program that piloted as the EL program, or the English Learners Program, in 2017 at Novato High School with 15 seniors, and we helped them work on their applications, their college applications and financial aid applications. And then in 2017-18, this past school year, the program changed to be called the Metas program. And the reasoning behind that is that majority of our students are Spanish speakers, and we wanted a name that they could resonate to and that they could pronounce. So we decided to go with Metas, which is goals in Spanish. This past school year, we worked with with freshmen through seniors, but with our seniors, 34 of our seniors decided to go to a 4-year college or a community college. 22 out of the 24 eligible students, meaning that those are the students that were eligible to apply for either FAFSA or the California DREAM Act. 22 of them applied to FAFSA or California DREAM Act on time by the March 2nd deadline. And the reasoning that it's not all the students that are going to college is because a portion of our students is actually not eligible to apply for financial aid because they don't qualify for the California DREAM Act. Also, we work with our students in applying to scholarships. So some of the students that don't qualify for financial aid, or majority of them, apply to a scholarship, so to 10,000 Degree Scholarship or the Doyle Scholarship. 22 out of our 24 students applied to our 22 out of 34 students applied to our 10,000 Degree Scholarship, and 16 of them participated in a program called Jumpstart and applied to the Doyle Scholarship at SRJC. And the Jumpstart program is a partnership that we actually have with our community liaison, Marta Posada, at Novato High School, and that we're carrying on to this next school year. We work with we started the school year, this past school year, with 150 students and ended working with 160 students because, as you might know, we have a lot of newcomers that come through throughout the school year. And this year we're starting with about 170 students, and we'll most likely end with a lot more than that. And this year, our hope is to heavily incorporate the career aspect of our program, and we're planning on doing this by having speaker series during lunch meetings. So we'll have members from the community who hopefully speak Spanish to come to talk to our students about what their career is, how do they get to that career, and how can the students get there as well. And we're also going to continue our partnership with Cita Williams, the school to career liaison at the school, to help our students apply to summer programs, summer internships, and job shadow opportunities. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So one of the things that we do at 10,000 Degrees is that we hold something called Financial Aid Week. And what we do there is that we help our seniors and their families apply to the free application for federal student aid or the California DREAM Act. And we do that by holding parent meetings, we hold assemblies, we have one-on-one in classroom support, and also we follow up with our targeted students. So our targeted students are students who are first generation, they're low income, or they're English learners. So at San Marin High School this year, we had a completion rate of 61% for the overall student population of seniors, and then a 72% completion rate for targeted seniors. In Novato High School, those numbers were 70% overall student completion rate and 78% targeted student rate completion. And one of the things that I really want to emphasize is that the only reason that our financial aid weeks are really doable is because of the staff at each high school, at Novato High School and San Marin. It's the teachers and all the administration that really help support 10,000 Degrees in getting us through financial aid week and helping us support our student. In fact, Gracie will be talking about financial aid week at the National College Access Conference this year. And that's super important because Novato was actually where financial aid week was first piloted and is now being used at like districts that are neighboring Novato. So we think that's a really amazing thing. Another really cool thing is that Jane was able to get 100% of her 12th grade institute students to complete their financial aid applications.
So in addition to all the work we do in the high schools, it's also important to have students learn about college pretty early on. So luckily for us, San Jose and Hamilton middle schools actually request 10,000 Degrees support for their college exploration days / weeks, depending on the way they approach their college programming. In 2017, this past year, 10,000 Degrees helped all these schools with either college tours or the presentations that we actually bring our staff to. It is in these workshops that students first get like a first glance towards the financial aid, the A through G's, that's really important for the incoming 9th grade year, advocacy and envisioning college, which is what we want to support in our students early on, like the earlier the better. And actually what's been happening is with the Metas program, they're actually doing a program with Santa Rosa Junior College where they're going to help transition 8th grade students from middle school to high school. And it's by doing this that we get the students to learn about college, start thinking about college early, so then we also know how to best help them once they get to our caseloads.
One more way that 10,000 Degrees is involved, actually at K through 12 levels, is with the academic support team. So formerly the Marin County School Volunteers, they were absorbed, we absorbed them last year. And so we actually have a new program manager, Judy Kramer, who's wonderful, and she helps train and place all of our volunteers in schools throughout NUSD, starting in elementary school all the way through high school. So last year we had 33 volunteers placed in NUSD schools, and they completed just shy of 2,000 hours of volunteer work to support the students and the teachers in their classrooms, which was awesome. And we're very excited to be working with Melissa at Linwood this year to hopefully form a new partnership there to assess the need and hopefully get some more of our volunteers placed at Linwood. Yeah. That's us, the 10,000 Degrees academic support team. So yeah, so we're all in the same house now, which is great. Yeah, that was, it's still pretty new. It was as of last school year, it was the first year. So something else that is a part of the 10,000 Degrees programming that we do is the scholarship piece, right? So when we transitioned in 2000 to focusing more on the college access and success, we definitely kept that scholarship component. So on the presentation slides, you can see some of the numbers, but in the current, the current numbers are still being allocated to students, but we were able to award $455,000 to NUSD students in the 17-18 year. And again, over 80% of our 10,000 Degree students that started a 4-year are able to obtain their bachelor's degree, which is really impressive, and we really try to provide that extra financial support. The other thing that's really important about receiving a scholarship from 10,000 Degrees is it's not just the money. In fact, that's a very small portion of it. They have a caseload manager while they're in college. So that's actually how I got connected to 10,000 Degrees. I went to Drake High School, and then when I was in 12th grade, I applied to the 10,000 Degrees scholarship because it's open to any student who's graduating from Marin County High School. And then I was assigned a caseload manager. So then the whole time that I was in school, I had somebody to remind me to fill out my financial aid applications. I had somebody to remind me to register for classes on time. I had somebody to go to when I was completely losing it and felt like I couldn't do it anymore. So there was somebody there to support me throughout that whole process, and I really credit 10,000 Degrees as being a huge part of the reason that I finished school when I did, and now I'm here. So there we are. Lastly, I just want to say thank you to all of you again for being so supportive of our programming in NUSD. Since I've worked with San Rafael and some of the other districts in the area, I feel like NUSD is really an example to a lot of our other districts. Like we mentioned earlier with financial aid, we piloted it here. We were able to take it to San Rafael. We started doing it in Petaluma last year. And so there's the example that you all have set is spreading throughout the county and even into Sonoma, which we really, really are excited about. And we've worked really hard. Our team has worked really hard to kind of integrate our programming into the fabric of the NUSD community from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So thank you so much for having us. And if you have questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Trustee Aguila, and then Trustee Millerick, and then Trustee Cooper.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
It's always good to have different services and partnering with different groups in our community and to help our students. I was wondering, you mentioned that Hamilton and that San Jose Middle School reached out and they were interested. Did Sinaloa reach out, or did you guys reach out to them?
Hi. So actually, we were able to reach out to Sinaloa at the end of the school year this past year, but unfortunately, we weren't able to solidify a meeting. But we will be doing that within the upcoming school year, and what we will be doing is transitioning our English learners at Sinaloa into the Metas program to prepare them for high school and let them know what's going on there.
Okay, thank you. So it is to follow up, so that's good. My second question is, I wish that I knew about this program when I graduated from Novato High, and this was years ago, but I wish that I had known about this. So what are we doing today to make sure that our parents and that our teachers and students, they're aware of this? Because I looked at the website and they're not under programs. I mean, it wouldn't be under programs, but unless I missed it, Leslie, I'm not sure if 10,000 Degrees is here. I looked for it, I couldn't find it, so maybe I'm doing something wrong, but I just want to make sure that we have it on the website. And I also want to make sure that it's in Spanish, some of this information. And I think that's it. Oh, could we somehow write about 10,000 Degrees, put it in the student manual or parent manual or whatever, just so that parents are aware of this? And I agree that the sooner, the younger they are, the better. Again, I wish I knew about this when I was in Novato High, so thank you.
Yes,
Can
we're
you just-
definitely working on all of that stuff. So I don't know that we're on the NUSD website, but we do during financial aid week, we have open parent meetings, and we encourage all parents to come. We work with the community liaisons to send out communication to make sure that people know what's happening. We do all calls home to all the parents that they know that we're there. And then within our programming, we meet with families quite a bit. And so right now it seems like actually the most popular way that people learn about 10,000 Degrees is through word of mouth. They have a friend or a cousin or a family member who's been part of the programming. And so that's kind of how it has spread. But we also work with Avid. We're going at Novato High School, we're going to one of their staff meetings so we can introduce ourselves and make sure the teachers know about what's going on. So we're really trying to work on making sure that everybody knows that these resources are available to all of the students, not just our students in the program.
Yeah. And that brings me to a good point, if I can. I know you know, everybody is doing such a great job serving the Latino community, and that's wonderful. And I'm just wondering, I hope that we don't get to a point where, so now you changed the name, and I'm hoping that we don't get to a point where the rest of our students are saying, well, is this only for Latinos? And so we want to make sure that, nobody slips through the cracks.
We've actually moved away from that quite a bit. Our programming this year is actually more diverse and more representative than it ever has been. And when we are looking at students to select for the program, we really try to make our selection representative of the school population as well. So it's good. We got a really good crew.
Okay, thank you.
Regarding the naming of it, that's something that came up once we were thinking about the change of the name. But something to know is that whenever we provide any workshops, any one-on-one meetings, anything, everything is translated in English and Spanish. So both of us are bilingual, so any information that the students are getting, if the student doesn't speak Spanish, we do it with them in English. And it is something also that we're trying to figure out how to work with students who might be maybe level 1s and only speak Portuguese. And we're trying to figure out how to work with those specific students more case-by-case basis, because majority of our students, more than 80% of our students are Spanish speakers. But we're working with our community liaison to access things like the translation services that the district uses to have one-on-one meetings with those students that do need to speak a different language.
Oh, that's wonderful. I just want to make sure that
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
all
Thank
students are included, yeah.
you. Thank you.
No, I agree with you, Trustee Aguila, because I think the perception was it was for EL students or a certain group of students, and that this truly is for every student. I don't think students know that, so you're on the right track, so thank you. Trustee Millerick.
A couple of points. I spent this morning looking over a technology program, and the presenter, this is a side note, the presenter was talking about how Internet of Things is taking over everything, and their example was how to help parents. And so they showed a picture of a teddy bear with that could read text, and so the teddy bear could read the books to the kids, and this was a way of helping parents. And that was kind of the grim side of the explanation. He says, but what if the child is Spanish or Russian and you want the child to hear this text in Spanish or Russian? You can't do that, but these Internet of Things teddy bear devices are able to do those level of translations today. It wasn't possible 5 years ago. The level of technology that's coming forward to be able to break down barriers of language are significant, and you should be looking for those kinds of new tools that will become affordable, in the $20 or $30 range that weren't available before at all, and be able to do better communication between Portuguese, which my grandmother used to speak, or Spanish or Russian or whatever the case may be. So that was an aside. The more interesting question I have is on your slide deck. You said the bullet says partnership with Santa Rosa Junior College Middle School Early Success Program, and I thought that was pretty cool. So, but my question is, because I'm an SRJC graduate, so I hold them in high regard, and go Bears. Just in case you aren't, that worked well for me. What are we doing with College of Marin? We have the same outreach program. We're serving you guys serve all of Marin. We serve a third of Marin. Do we have a similar program to engage the College of Marin to have, they collect their tax base from Novato as well as the rest of the county. They should be providing services to the population that they serve, and you serve both. Have you been able to get them to participate, or how's that working? Can we help?
Yeah, well, so actually College of Marin is very engaged in this, and they're doing a lot of work in this space as well. So there's the opportunity for any high school student in Marin to take classes at College of Marin for free while they're in high school. Also the Compass program, which is a program that we work with, they serve students 9th through 12th grade, and the goal is that by the time that the students finish high school, they'll actually have a full semester's worth of college credit. So those are some of the ways that we're getting students involved. They can do like the dual enrollment. They can also do some of the academies over school breaks as well as in the summertime. So College of Marin is very involved, and they actually come out when we do college application workshops and we're doing financial aid. College of Marin is present in that space as well, so that they can answer questions and work more closely with the students. They have a whole team for that as well. Yeah, that's a great question.
I'm glad to see that they're
They're great, yeah.
Trustee Cooper?
I'm just really, really impressed with you guys. Always have been. I can remember several events at Novato High School in the evening, and you had the last one I went to was a sold out crowd. The room was totally full. So whatever you're doing a great job, and you're definitely benefiting our students. And 80%, and I really love the fact I didn't know about your caseload manager, that you follow through. It seems like it's so important. So how would you describe the relationship just in terms of making sure we touch all of our students, or at least they're all aware of your presence at the high school specifically? What's the relationship with the counselors, and how does that work?
So because we have such a close relationship with the staff at the schools, a lot of times we get referrals from them, like they'll be sending their students over to us, even if they're not in 12th grade. Sometimes we get someone in 10th grade who's just curious, or someone in 11th grade who's panicking already. They'll just send them over to us because we've built that trust within our counselors that they know they're sending them to like good hands. And then from there, if counselors have students in mind when they're applying as 11th graders to be in our program as 12th graders, that's when we'll share the application. Here's what you have to do to get into our program. And even students who aren't in our program, they're still allowed to come to any of our meetings. They're allowed to come to any of our workshops. So we're definitely out there for the whole entire population. And we try our best to definitely like be visible. We're in the library with the College and Career Center, so students always see us and we always say hi.
Yeah, it's great. And I'm really glad, on one final note, that that you are reaching out, or you have reached out to Sinaloa. I was happy to hear that. Thanks.
Trustee Mack, and then Trustee Scott.
It's going to be Shelley's turn. Good stuff. I want to just, for me, this is really important because we do so much. We try to do so much with A to G and everything else in the school, in the classes. But as we've learned over the last few years, there's more that happens out after 2:30. And it goes to the family, it goes to the support networks that a lot of our kids, maybe even a majority of our kids, don't have. You guys provide that. That's what I love about this, because you're providing that support that I provide my kid, but not every kid has that available. So thank you, and I'm so glad that you've come in to really use us as a lab, right, to hopefully expand this and bring it as it succeeds. So thank you for that. One question for me, because there's so many programs we have, and I just like to kind of connect the dots. And I think I know how to, but I'd like to hear you guys do it. So some things that pop to mind, 10,000 Degrees doing what we just saw. We have Avid doing what it does. Obviously, there's some parallels. I'm not going to say overlap. Maybe you might, maybe not. And then PK. So maybe share a little bit on how you think those all work together or overlap, or what do you think?
Yeah, so something that's really cool that I actually learned from my experience in working with San Rafael, because we've got like 19 different college access organizations at the table in San Rafael, and so we actually work really hard to work together. So we compare student lists to make sure that the students who are really needing to be served are getting served. We do that through the counselors, and so that's something that we do here as well, especially with PK, is like we encourage our parents to go to PK because that's going to benefit our students as well, So we encourage them to be enrolled there. We do have students that are in Avid, and we actually do like college tours with the Avid classes. We'll go in and do workshops and do like presentations for the Avid classes as well. So I think we kind of all work together in tandem to make sure that there's like a nice support net for all of these students. And there's definitely areas of overlap, right? And every program is unique, but we try to work together as a unit. It's not like a competitive, like, oh, we want these students, we want these students. There's plenty of students to go around. And so we really try to work together as a team to make sure that everyone's being served.
And let me just redirect the question a little bit. Is there a kind of a standard student profile, situation profile that you'd steer toward each of those three programs, or kind of all the same?
That's more of I think that's a question that would be good to ask the counselors, because the counselors, like we mentioned earlier, they're the ones who are doing a lot of the referrals. And I think it's really just as long as the student is getting the support that they need, that's what matters. But the student is actually, we give the responsibility to the student to kind of shop around and look at the different programs and figure out what's going to feel best for them, what's going to be the best fit, because we all are unique, we all offer different things. But a lot of times, like, we'll have students who maybe don't make the GPA requirement for another program, and so they're able to come to us and still get the support that they need. So there's a nice mix of requirements and eligibility stuff, so that hopefully the students can find a program that feels best for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question, sorry, Debbie. Just in terms of SAT, ACT, obviously that's not senior year, so that's junior year. Talk a little bit how you kind of deal with that whole fun part of the process. My kid's right in the middle of it, so.
So luckily for us, a student can take their SAT and ACT in their senior year. They actually have up until December to take it, so they have 3 chances in senior year to take it. in the chance that they haven't taken it already when they enter our program. When we do our summer intensive with them, where they learn about what we offer and the general stuff, we let them know about the testing and the options. And if a student is 4-year bound, at that point, if they haven't taken it, we're like, let's just sign you up for that August one that's coming up, right? Because we always encourage them to take them at least twice, that first time for the trial run and the second time to actually know what they're studying for. So we push for them to do that. And then if a student is community college bound, then they don't have to worry about it. But we do want to focus that they're graduating and all of that stuff. So we definitely have SAT focused things to help them out there. And we are very aware of like the deadlines and all of that. So we have them at least have those tests done by the time they need them.
And one thing I'll just add for testing, so we intake our institute students during the spring of their 11th grade year. So that's when we do their initial meeting. We ask them if they've taken those tests yet, so we can make sure that they're getting signed up if they can. We encourage them to take advantage of the fee waivers that their counselors have. And if for some reason they're not eligible for a fee waiver, then we also have fee waivers that we can give for them, and they can use those fee waivers up to 2 times. So that's why we encourage them to take it twice, is to take full advantage of their fee waivers. So we do that. And then also Khan Academy is a phenomenal online platform that we encourage our students to use. They partner with SAT and with college boards so that they have practice tests and questions and things like that. So, and that's great because it's accessible to any student as long as they can use a computer, which they can do at school or at the library, something like that, so that it's open to everyone.
And let me just follow one last question. I apologize for taking so many, but there's talk about possibly replacing the standardized test that we have to do for the state with the ACT or the SAT. What's your guys' take on that?
That's interesting. I mean, right now, this is not an organizational position by any means, because we haven't had that conversation yet, but right now, because it's a requirement to get into the 4-year schools, if I don't know about replacing, but it would be important that all students know that they need to take these tests. And so if it's required for everybody, then they're taking it anyway. I don't think it would hurt. So, yeah.
Are you done?
Are you done? Trustee Scott, and then Trustee Nell.
Okay. Well, first, I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you guys are doing in our district. And I also want to thank the Haas Foundation, because without you guys, we wouldn't be able to serve these kids. So thank you very much for that. And on one of your slides, you guys showed the A to G working in the middle schools. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How many kids are you guys actually touching and reaching, and is there a limit there? A numbers limit in terms of students?
No, so the way that we do it is when we do these college exploration days at the middle schools, we have a series of different workshops that they see, so they're listed in there. And I've actually done the A through G presentation for quite a few of the Novato students. And so like at San Jose, we do all of the 8th graders, right? So every single 8th grader.
Every
single one, yeah.
Okay.
They hear the A through G information, and we try to be strategic with our timing too, so that they're getting this presentation around the same time that their counselors from the high school are coming in to help them select classes.
Okay.
So like the last couple years, we've done our exploration day like the week or 2 before the counselors came in, so that the A through G, even just the term, is kind of like percolating in their brains when their counselors come in. And then even if nothing else, they can say, I want to be A through G eligible, and their counselor can guide them from there. So for any student who participates in our college exploration day has heard about A through G. Yeah. And at Hamilton, we do 6th through 8th grade, so they start hearing about A through G in 6th grade, and they hear it again and again until they get to
So
high
Hamilton,
school.
it's all 3.
Yeah, because it's smaller. So because at San Jose, it's quite a bit bigger, and so
Okay.
you know we have a limited staff, and so at Hamilton we can do all of the grades, and then at our larger schools we focus on the 8th graders because it's most pertinent for them. Yeah.
It is. Is there any chance that you might be doing, I mean, just for me, I'd like to see it in 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Yeah. I think it's really a capacity thing. So all of this programming is done by really these three wonderful human beings right here. So it's a lot for 3 people, and we really do need to focus on our caseloads. And we try as much as we can to do the community-based work, the financial aid, the college exploration for middle school. So it's really just a capacity thing. If we had more capacity.
Have you guys done any kind of outreach via social media in terms of like, okay.
Yeah.
So you're out there reaching the students that way too. Okay, great.
Yeah,
That's what I was curious
Snapchat,
about.
Email, Twitter, all the stuff. They get it from multiple places. Text messaging. We have a text messaging platform. So
great.
they
Oh,
hear
then
from
you're
us
reaching that group
quite
then.
often. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So maybe you work with maybe working with the high school counselors to reach the younger working with them to get to the younger 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So,
And I
a
will
collaboration with the high school instead of putting it all on you guys.
Yeah, and the teachers.
And the college and career.
Yeah, college and career, and then the teachers at the middle school level have been phenomenal and really engaged in the process. At San Jose, Whitney, who runs the AVID program, she has been super, super engaged in that space, really making sure that the students are getting the resources that they need, and Kim at Hamilton, so, yeah.
Trustee Nell.
You guys are popular. Everybody wants a chance to ask you questions and talk to you, so thank you. Interestingly enough, the conversation about the test taking, it's called AB 1951, 1951. It's sitting on the governor's desk right now, which would allow school districts like ours to seek alternative testing. And I'm sure that the current body here has received their CSBA alert and has forwarded their letter and email on to our assemblyman and the governor and our state senator in support of passing this bill. So it sounded like you were curious about that. So I just wanted to let you know that we are working our way to slowly getting permission to do a logically good thing for our kids. It's amazing how government works sometimes. Oh, yes. Okay, so I digress. So, we're fortunate here, primarily in Marin County. I'm old enough to remember the Marin Education Fund. You guys, your roots, having the Marin Community Foundation support that agency in the beginning, and those pioneers eventually became 10,000 Degrees, and I'm very proud to be on the same page with you as our district and the work that you've been doing, and we're happy to have been a big part of your growth and pushing the concept that all children can go to college if they want to, and that we should be doing everything we can to make that available to them. And the partnership that we have between public and your private nonprofit organization is a terrific example of the best way to go forward on things. So I just wanted to recognize things, and one was partnering. You guys have an excellent record for getting out there and expanding. I mentioned before how primarily it was a Marin County funded thing, but it's good to hear Sonoma, San Francisco, learning from others and growing. So that in itself is an achievable goal when you're able to ally yourself with organizations like ours and the ones you mentioned, like Santa Rosa JC. I am really impressed with your completion of college statistic. You guys should be very proud of that. It's phenomenal. And again, I hope a lot of those are Novato students. I'll assume some are, but evidence. And the other thing I wanted to really tout was your hard work in the what I'm coining the phrase of K-14. I really think taking junior college, making it more melded or merged with the K through 12 system. I think we put far too much pressure on our young people to achieve those A through G requirements within 12 years, and you have to fit in a particular cohort block. But the work that you're doing is really critical because you're helping students. I believe one of you did go to JC and then went on to graduate from the University of California at Berkeley, which is, a #1 institution. So that's how you do it. And we all mature and learn at different levels. So the work that you're doing is to be respected and appreciated. So I just wanted to put some emphasis on that work, and I hope you guys continue in that direction, working with our students and others to take advantage of the K through 14 to eventually get a BA. We're running, I don't want to take too much time, and we didn't get in too much, but at some point, I'm assuming you guys, do you have any, keep track of your graduate students? Who goes on for graduate studies and things along those lines? But next time, some other way you could let us know how that goes. All right, thank you.
All right, so now we're circling back around. You're good. Okay, Trustee Aguila?
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just have more of a comment. We talked earlier about overlapping services. Me, just personally, I just wanted to share that I'm not so much worried about overlapping programs, and I've spoken with our superintendent about this. Overlapping programs sometimes will help a student, and they get to pick what works for them. But more than that, I'm most worried about not overlapping the services, but so much like overlapping expenses. And so just to, and I know this doesn't apply to you as this program, but just in other programs in general, I mean, that's just my own personal opinion, so.
All right, well, you can see that this board is really passionate about not only what happens in the classroom, but how we progress our students on beyond high school. So, and you guys are a huge part of that, so thank you very much. And I think we'll put you on the calendar for every year to come back instead of periodically. So you were here a couple of years ago, and it wasn't you guys, and you're a whole new team. For me, it's a whole new team. But we'll make sure you're recurring every year as a presentation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our staff reports. Our first one is called Data Matters. It's an update, and Jen Larson is up again.
I'm back.
You're going to be popular all school year.
I know, I'm very excited, but
Were those your kids back
oh,
there?
they're still over there.
They're still here.
Yes,
Hi.
they're floating around back there, having a good time. I know, they're getting ready for school to start.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so another great introduction. I get to tag team this one with Alex, and he's really going to be the star of the show because he's going to demo the thing we've all been excited about. So about a year ago, Alex started working with our team up in instruction to help us get the data we needed in an accurate and up-to-date and quick manner. So we were really having a hard time getting everything we needed in a way that could get us not only the actual accurate information, because it wasn't always coming out accurately, but to do it in a timely manner so that it was up to date and we were able to desegregate it by any group in any manner in which we needed to display it. We have such a strong goal around making data-driven decisions. It's really hard to do that when we couldn't trust the data that was being put in front of us. And so we tag teamed with Alex, and he put together what we originally called the reports page. And this was basically a collection of reports that we used on a regular basis to either help inform principals or schools or some of our special programs like 10,000 Degrees. We had some of those collections built in. As it started to grow, we realized that this was really something we wanted to invest some time and energy into because it was just so incredible. Not only were we able to get accurate data, but it pulls from real time. Anything in Aries, he can pull, and he can make it user-friendly. So I believe we started with P3, so our K-5 schools, because they had such an immediate need, which meant we lost Alex a little bit. But he went on to build what we're about to look at, which is everything that our P3 schools have identified they really need at their fingertips at any given moment. And he calls it Data Matters. And what you're going to see tonight is a combination of efforts. Obviously, the manpower of Alex Perez, but also the financial support of Marin Community Foundation, and then also the collaboration and consulting of Learning for Action. And they've really been the team working with our teachers and our principals on the ground to inform Alex as to what makes the most sense visually and organizationally for presenting the data. And so here it is.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Been working on this since February, and it's pretty much working mostly with the LFA to trying to figure out what it is exactly that the district needed. So like she said, they did all the leg action, and this is what we came up with. What you see first is we created a landing page. We have the 3 different ones. So we have the teacher version, we have the district office version, and then we have the school admin, which is principal or any administrator at the school who wants to see the data at the school level. The demo that I'm going to present today is the teacher, because that's really where we wanted to focus, put our more focused on. And what you see is immediately is a quick overview of their classroom. So it's the demographics, how their demographics are at their classroom, using a Hamilton teacher as a demo. And this is last year's data, having rolled it into this current year. So once the new year's schedules are done, this will be presenting current students and where they currently are in, as far as the CASP, CELT, MAP, and MARS. So those are the 4 assessments that we focused on. Currently working on adding the CASA, what are those called? The ones that they take before, the ones that they take before the CASP assertive. Interims, yes, CAPS interims. So I'm working on that, and then I've been doing a little research to add the new CELT, which is called LPAC. So those will be on here as well. And then I have a huge long list of different assessments that the teachers will love to see on here, but these are the ones that we have data readily available, so we focused on that. We said, we try to focus on simplicity, make it easy for teachers. So one of the things is they always ask is, who are these students? So we made it where there's a quick drop, clicked on, they see who those English learners are. Down here, they want to see, okay, who are these 11% students that need some little more help. So we'll click on that, we get a list of those students. Like I said, this is the overview of the class. For CASP, I've given them 2 years data so they can see how the same cohort of students have progressed from the previous 2 years. And MAP, we'll be uploading MAP as soon as the term ends. So we have fall, winter, spring, but it's always going to be the latest 3 terms. And then for March, it's always going to be the last term. So, and they usually do 2 different parts. Last year, we only graded one of the 2 parts, so that's why we only have 1 part. Another of the dashboards I created is by subject area. So you see the same data, but now it's by subject all in 1 page. So we have CASP, MAP, all in 1 page. And we also get the addition of having the different domains that the students taught. The same options happen. You can see who those students are. And for MAP, we also have the different goals. So we present different goals, and also, again, same 3 terms. And then we also added the student report. Sometimes we just want a spreadsheet and we want to be able to see a list of students. Added the ability for the teacher to kind of customize it the way that they want it, where they can select which exams they want to compare, which scores they want to actually look at. Oops. Can add as many as they want. The warning I did give the teachers was that the more options we select, the longer the report would actually take. We're going to do one quick view. I'm selecting ELA for most of these so that we can kind of see how this class looks like. And then here we go. So now we have a list of students, and we have 3 different assessments. And like I said, you can select as many as you want, and you can start comparing. And these are all color coded. So based on the front page, we had a color code system. So it kind of gives you the same thing. Red, student needs some help, and green and blue means that the student is proficient in those. Another option is that we created another dashboard where we can actually see a student profile and drill down exactly how that student is doing on all of these exams. And all of these different dashboards also have a drill down, so we can focus on MAP and see how the student is doing in MAP in general over time. And we have the same thing for, and then we have the same for CASP, CELT, and MARS. Another thing we wanted to focus on too is add the description that CELT and CASP gives us. So we kind of gave them the description based on the proficiency that they got and based on the grade. So these are all dynamic based on the results. And that's pretty much about it. We kind of created this also in mind keeping the consistency across all different dashboards. So if a principal or a district office person logs in, they get all the same reports. There's nothing different. And hopefully we'll start development for our secondary students this semester, and probably be finished by the start of the 2nd semester, depending on what type of data we want for our secondary students. So, you guys have any questions?
No, we don't. Trustee Millerick, how about if I just go down the line? Trustee Millerick.
Simple, is this available now?
Yeah, as of today, it's pretty much live. We're going to be meeting with curriculum this Friday to talk about the deployment, so how we're going to deploy this to the teachers and work out a schedule.
So the teachers don't know it's available, but you think the system is operational So you're gonna start next week and let bring the teachers on in some kind of training strategy?
Right, and we've already met with a group of teachers where we presented this to them and collected feedback and made modifications based on that feedback. Also did the same thing with principals and collected feedback from them, so that where we deployed something that's workable for them, and we provide the data that they want.
So this is general availability released to the entire population, but you're gonna, each teacher will receive training as it is made available to them?
Correct. So yeah, we're trying to come up with different training methods just so it makes it readily available. So one of the things that I've talked with some of the teachers is showing up to their weekly meetings and making myself available, or having scheduled time at their schools. Also, on the landing page, created walkthroughs to kind of help them with that as well. And then we're also working on developing some guides. So we have this option here where we've created several guides on how to use it, and we also created an option, same as our current support system through Zendesk, so that they can submit tickets as well. So we're really trying to make this as successful as possible, but making myself available for training in any shape and form. Mm-hmm.
Trustee Nell, did you have anything? No?
You know, I just wanted to thank you, Alex. It's nice to see you. Just a little kidding. I mean, the staff around here was saying they had you locked and sequestered in a room, and
Quarantine.
well, the only thing that would grow in there were mushrooms or something, the way they would describe it, and they wouldn't let you out. So I'm really glad to see that you succeeded. This is very exciting from my perspective. I have 1,000 questions, which I won't, bother the board with right now, but I just hope that going forward, it sounds like we got a good start. It's going to be very helpful, and that we'll be able to scale on this somewhat, get into formative assessments. There's got to be other sources of data that we can link to this and begin to query and generate individual reports for individual students, right down to their IEPs. So he's over there going, no. But excellent. I just think it's just terrific to finally see us moving into the 21st century and taking advantage of this type of information, so that we can focus on our students better. And
right.
You, sir, are to be thanked and appreciated for the work that you've done.
Thank you.
Trustee Aguila? No. Okay. Trustee Mack?
So I second everything he just said.
Yeah, I think we all do.
I work in this space. I know what you're going through. It's not easy. I've worn your propeller head sometimes. But anyway, questions though in general, going back, this basically replaces the Schoolzilla experiment, right? That didn't work out. Okay, just want to make sure I'm getting that right. And Data Matters, are they a school-specific vendor or more of a data? No, that's what I figured. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get you more credit here.
We own the data.
Yeah. No, I know. So this platform is really intended for BI in general, and then you're using it in a school application. Is that the idea?
This program was developed from scratch in-house, so it's ours. And
not even data. So Data Matters is our name.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Cool.
We are.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, do we have it copyrighted and licensed?
Forgive me for not knowing that. I should have known that. Okay. Then the other question I've got, obviously this is now currently all test scores, but I'm guessing, kind of going down Derek's path a little bit, we're going to eventually get into more in-class type assessments, whether they're grades or those sort of things. That's kind of the vision down the road.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Got it. And A to G, all that fun stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's pretty much everything. One of the things that we've talked about with some of the teachers was that there's some assessments that they grade by hand, and trying to figure out how we're going to collect that data and put it on here.
Sure.
So there's also that component that we need to think through and figure out how we're going to do it. So I have, like I said, I have a group of teachers that they want to work with me in figuring out how that's going to look based on how they're going to find it easy for them to enter that data.
Right. Got it. Okay. And then, so obviously for me, the biggest impact is cohort analysis as well as trend analysis, because I love those line charts that show the trends, because that's just an instant flag what's going on. So looking forward to more of that. But what I'm curious about, do we have much of a vision for turning this around a little bit and also focusing on the teachers and what's going on in their classrooms in terms of performance? Or it's just another discussion down the road? So I'd point that out as a thought. The data's there, you know, let's see how things are going. So, yeah. But thank you.
Trustee Cooper, did you have any?
I do.
Okay.
This is excellent. I'm glad you've been sequestered or whatever you've been doing. And I would suggest we lock you into some kind of multi-year agreement, multi-year contract for this young man. So just walk me through briefly. So I'm a new teacher. I'm coming to my new classroom at Hamilton School. And so I'm able to see, shortly, I'll be able to see the students that are going to be coming into my class this year, right?
Right.
So walk me through that. So they'll be able to actually look and see the students and say, oh, last year, these are the three prior assessments, and here's some areas of need and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to speak a little bit to the use in the classroom and also the formative. Mars task is actually our first go at kind of a formative assessment. Yeah, absolutely, sorry. So the Mars task is actually our first kind of attempt at what a formative assessment would look on here. And so anything we put in Aries, you can draw out of here. So it's a matter of us deciding what we want to enter. And so yes, we would open that up to formative. But as Jim mentioned earlier, a part of that is us identifying the learning targets. And the next step in that process will be to develop those common, because right now we have so many, a wide variety of assessments being used. So that is the next step. And then we would design those with this in mind, is how are we going to then transfer that information and that data into Aries so that it can be grabbed by this. As for the teacher who's walking into the classroom, they do have the 3 years back, so they would have this report and they could go back and compare, but they can also, as you saw in that drop down, they can customize it to any other report that isn't necessarily on that front screen. So what he's pulled on this front is the initial visual, are the items that the teachers and principals said, this is the stuff that we're looking at right now every day. But they have the ability to also customize the reports if they wanted to look back over time.
And that's when I guess training becomes so critical. So, yeah, great. Awesome work, Alex. Thank you.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is that I know that like you were talking to, some teachers actually want to focus on specific targeted students. And one of the things is that the demographics that you see are the ones that we focused a lot at this district. So I made all of these be clickable where you can actually focus on that targeted group and see those results down here. So this is like all the English learners now versus the entire class. And made it where you can go even deeper, where if you wanted to see a combination of your socioeconomic disadvantaged students then now, and English learners, now we have both groups graphed under one. So.
I saw
That
GATE
kind of
on there
really-
too. Oh yeah, GATE
Yeah.
too. Great.
Yeah, so
Special
these are
ed,
the current
nice.
groups, and I asked the teachers to provide a few more different groups that they want to focus on, and I'm still working on collecting that list to add more demographics to this report.
So,
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
oh, so Jen, I was hoping maybe you'd be able to talk a little bit about the special ed and what that might look like. And I'm also curious in terms of just for that student profile, what are we doing if we have a new student? I mean, how is that data getting in? If they're coming from, another state, if they're coming from another country, I don't want any student left behind, and I don't want anybody falling through the cracks. What does that look
Yeah.
like?
So a typical student onboarding, we would have them register. If they have common assessments that they've used and they've brought that with them in their CUME file, we would be able to upload that and put that into Aries. Otherwise, they would have initial testing on that first. So our MAP, our MARS, most of these happen pretty quickly as a diagnostic when they start in the schools. And so they would have that baseline. We do often, most of the assessment tools that we have up here especially are used pretty widely. And so a lot of them do come with that information
Okay.
with them. To speak to SPED, Kelly may have more information about
Yeah.
that specifically. But when this is broken down, what we're looking at is the same, that demographic, but the same assessments. So there, any specific accommodations or anything would be
So
have
like the
taken
IEP
account.
of 504, all of that would be in there?
Well, this is taking into account those accommodations would have been made within the testing environment for the students, but the data that you're seeing is their performance in a common platform.
So I'm just
So,
curious,
for
like how we might be
example-
benchmarking that and just in terms of
So they're all unique to their IP. So for example, if a student is getting accommodations, they would get those accommodations on a CASP assessment,
Okay.
but they're not going to be listed or recorded in here. So that's not a step that this is including yet.
Okay.
And I don't know that there's discussion for it down the line.
Okay. Can you come to the mic? Yes, please. Well, I'm just curious. I was excited to see that on there, and I just was very grateful, along with the gate as well.
So my understanding is that, so for SPED students who take a MAP test, for example, my understanding is that we can pull those individual students out of a group and then pull our data for that particular population. Does that answer? Not really.
Not really, but I'm just trying to gather in my mind in terms of learning targets that will be helpful for teachers and staff to help this group of students.
I know when I taught and I used MAP, I worked with the students and they established goals with me so that we did create learning targets based on that and saw tremendous growth. So it's really great feedback for students and teachers.
Okay.
We just have to make sure that everybody's taking the MAP test or whatever test that is.
Okay, great, thank you. I appreciate it.
Trustee Aguila.
I wasn't going to ask, but you mentioned something about customizing. And so is this customizing to anything that a teacher would need or would want or would be useful to know? So for example, we're talking about academic performance. Now, is there anything like, can we customize to like behavior? Is that what you're talking about? So for example, we're having 2 new SROs coming in, and we didn't talk about how we're going to measure success for the SROs and how is that measured? So is that part of, are you talking, or just simply academic?
Right now, the dashboard is simply academic. So right now, you can only pull data on assessments and the 4 assessments that we currently have and the demographics that we have available.
Okay.
So we are planning on putting in some behavioral stuff on here. At this point, we only worked at putting in at the student profile level where you can see total number of suspensions. But aside from that, I haven't expanded it any further. I know that some of the schools have requested to have SARB data on there as well to find out if a student has been SARB or not.
So the answer is yes. It can
In the
have some
future,
behavior.
it will be. Right now, it's only academic.
Okay. So no.
In
The answer is
addition
no.
to suspension and attendance. So their attendance record and their suspension rate would be included, but no details
Okay.
about their
Right, because
behavior.
I believe in confidentiality, and all of this obviously is confidential, and it's just our information for NUSD. But I was just thinking that I thought about the SROs and how we're going to measure that. So that might be a conversation for the near future. But
As far as the
Thank
customization also, just to go back when we were looking at how we can break it down by groups, another great tool that we have in iAccess, it's not in this format yet, as Alex said, we'll be moving towards secondary, but one of the tools that I use a lot is I can actually create, Alex creates for us, lists of groups of students. So for example, I can toggle between all of our partnerships. So I can pull a report for students who are just working with 10,000 degrees. And then I have the demographics within that group. I can pull a report just for Compass. I can pull a report just for each of our summer schools. So those are customizable as well on a different level. And then within that, again, I'm seeing suspension. I'm seeing also for the secondary, I can see A through G, and I can see their grades. And so those are the reports that I've been using a great deal with our secondary schools and especially our counselors, is that once a quarter now we can use that report, and I can print out for them a report of who are the students that are successful and doing great, and who do we need to have a little bit of an extra attention moving into the next semester.
Can I? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Just Jen, just on that in terms of who's doing great, is there going to be, for those kids that are excelling and doing fantastic, I'm just curious, is this something that can build in terms of, I know we have the GATE program, but just in terms of, is this going to be something we might use down the road in terms of, Developing other programs in terms of,
I think back to it's similar to the question about academics versus behavior. Right now, we're using this mainly to monitor academic proficiency, but the Indigo report is actually where we're digging into a lot of information and we're actually looking at how we can connect that to Aries, because that Indigo report and their CCR work is where we're getting a lot of information and data around what their interests are and what programming we need to start building
challenging them.
to both challenge, but also to engage
Increase,
them and make
yes.
sure that we have programs that are meeting their goals for post-high school
Right,
and
just for
college.
those gate kids. Okay, awesome, thanks.
Trustee Miller?
This is a great presentation and it's wonderful work. The integrity of this whole thing depends on the quality of the database that sits underneath this. And clearly, as we've heard the conversation tonight, there's additional features that or data elements that people want to see the results of them reflected in the report. So clearly, they have to end up in the data stored in some form. What kind of integrity measures or audit measures do we have to make sure that the data a year from now is just as sound as the data today, or how do we make sure it stays current? We don't, under budget pressures, stop paying attention and then discover we've lost this important asset as it just slipped away because we weren't careful enough. What's the model?
I actually think this in itself has been a great audit for us. In building this to begin with is where we found a lot of gaps in our data accuracy. And so it allowed us to not only build reports, but it allowed us on the back end to go in and make changes and update some of the things that were not accurate. And so our department spent a great deal of time working with IT, getting to a place where I believe for the most part, everything is accurate. And then the second is the school mint is as we start having those records coming in a little bit more regularly and in a format that is easy, it's not so much person to person to person update physically.
Yep.
I think we're gonna see that
Yep.
come around quite a bit.
Yeah, I think the model of school mint as a automated we talked about it last time. The ability that data is going to be coming in off of personal devices from the originator of the information, and as long as we collect it and make sure it's valid at the point of collection, we'll be in good shape. School mint, we're paying $40 grand a year, I think, for something in that general ballpark. But this, we've got our own staff building, and we're not paying a penny for it. So I just, that's well, I mean, people pay your salary, I got that, but it's the significant value for the school district based on your work and the ability to do a good job for kids, and so hats off to you for this work.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was really great. We want more, but we know that this is a huge starting point for us in this district, and data and looking at metrics is so important to our teachers to be able to make their advance in what they do and how they change their instruction is so important, and to have it readily available is amazing. So I can't ask for more. So thank you so much, and we look forward to
So I'd just like to again thank you. You know, districts use a bunch of different programs from Illuminate to ORS to Schoolzilla. I've used a whole bunch of them in my previous districts. You try them, it works for some people, doesn't work for others. And what we found was the most successful districts are developing their own, and we're just really lucky to have Alex and also Tim, because what Tim did was really shuffle all the responsibilities around in the department to be able to free Alex up to work on that. And getting that data in the hands of the teachers is really crucial. And so there's a lot of ways that we will be able to customize this down the road. Right now, we're just trying to get, here's the basic information they want at elementary. And just so you know, once we roll that out and get that to them, it's really getting the information to the high schools and second and middle schools. And it's actually almost more important there because we don't have as many formative assessments, and we need to agree on what those are and get those in there, because, you know, doing the CASP your junior year it's not a waste of time, but it's not that you don't have a cohort that you're talking about, can't follow those kids. So we need to come up, and we do have them. We have MAP, where the MARS assessments, our own performance assessments, eventually getting the graduate profile, the 6 C's in there, right? So those are rubrics that we all have. So But I just want to go back and thank you so much, because you're an amazing resource and asset that we have, and so are you, Jen. So thanks to both of you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Next up is our summer supplemental educational programs update. This is something we get at the end of every summer, as an update on our programs that occurred during the summer. We've had 2 amazing reports, so,
I know, the bar's
Nothing-
really, I don't think you can follow Alex.
Nothing
That feels
less.
really unfair. So we all know that, just because it's June 5th doesn't mean that our children's intellectual needs kind of power down at that point. That, we encourage our kids to engage in summer reading and travel and do things that stimulate the mind and develop. But there is sort of a real at-risk group of students that we have in our district that we make sure that throughout the summer we're caring for those needs and addressing them. So my PowerPoint is really just aesthetics tonight. It's not content. So I don't know if there's a way to just get that started, but I just am providing a few images of what's been taking place this summer. Oh, just push play. So if you just get it going, it's just some snapshots from all these programs I'm going to talk to you about. So the first one that I want to talk about tonight is our extended school year. This is a special program. It's specifically for students with IEPs who we know from the data, from what we know about their learning style or their challenges, that they will experience some backward sliding during the summer. So we make sure that during the summertime that we're working on those goals, we're helping them with independence and continuing to maintain those needs. These are kids who we show that summer gap really does have a negative impact in their development. So we had 59 students this summer with the Loma Verde Elementary School, and they got the opportunity to continue to work on their IEP goals with our highly trained staff and continue to do that. My next little subgroup is our senior independent study. These are those students that just fall short of the graduation requirements and are incredibly close within a class or 2. This year's cohort was 10 students, and we were able to work with them through the summer. Jen Larson hosted a real lovely graduation here in the middle of the summer, and those families were incredibly thrilled. Stuffed animals, balloons, applause, family members, and it was such a joyful thing and so important to see those students be able to change their own narrative, right? To kind of get to that point where they've missed graduating with their peers, but they've put in the hard work, they've demonstrated their knowledge and their ability, and they do get to leave Novato Unified with that all-important high school diploma. My last group is the Camp University kids at the Hamilton campus. This is our group of English language learners who we provide with a lot of summer learning activities and get to participate in the morning in a lot of academics, and in the afternoon they engage in a lot of more fun physical activities. I provided the sort of summary report for you. You can see that they did a lot of sort of pre-test and post-test assessments, and the students demonstrated growth and knowledge, particularly around their science, understanding of science. This summer we worked with Clark Consulting, and they were also spent a lot of time at Hamilton campus and working on the oral language and developing that in those students. I got the chance to swing by there, and it was really extraordinary to see how truly engaged those kids were with those teachers, with very small groups, very intimate setting, and opportunity for those kids to really take risks in front of their peers and advance their language. We have a lot of partnerships that I think are very impressive. On the last page of that report, you can see we're working with Hamilton Pool. We're working with a lot of community resources, including food banks. We got those kids over to the Marin Innovation Lab quite frequently, so they got their opportunities to really get their hands around tech and the makerspace. The Marin County Library, we made sure those students were engaged with their local library and getting reading. So overall, a real wonderful program, and real unique opportunity that enables us to stay close to those kids and make sure that their summer is one that enhances their academics. So.
All right. Board members? Trustee Scott?
So I read on here with the Hamilton pool that, I guess the students were swimming once a week. I'm just curious, did any of the children become proficient in swimming?
I imagine
It's
so.
just such
I
an
don't know.
important
That's a
thing. If
great
you don't know how to
question.
swim, that can be life-saving. So I'm just curious, how did we do there?
I will ask for a little follow-up and shoot you an
Okay.
email in my report.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, that's a real needed skill. If you don't know how to swim, learning how to swim is fabulous. And I just saw that. That was just one of my questions, so I was just curious.
I'm certain I will find that out for you.
Anybody else? Trustee Nell?
I just want to thank you for bringing this report forward because it basically demonstrates how engaged we are with the community, especially over summer, and how we are working with students and their families to keep education a part of their lives and make it lends validity, importance to have them participate in these fun ways of learning over the summer. And so I think it's terrific. You guys did a good job, and you focused where it needed to be. And I think by engaging, we will hopefully have inspired and will eventually empower these young people to do their best. So.
Absolutely. And anecdotally, we've heard that a lot of these kids might not, have someone at home to care for them throughout the day. So these kids are in a real sheltered, safe environment where we're advancing their academics and letting them really have a fun and joyful summer. So it's very neat to see.
All right. Trustee Millerick?
So I went through the report quickly, and we see the kids using virtual reality. We see the makerspace. We see Lunatech. We see batteries and circuits. That's the opportunity. So I look at that and I say, gee, they're getting to try something new outside of their regular curriculum. And then I check myself and I say, is that really true? Is that the summer school experience an expansive try something new program, which it looks like, or are they able to do these other activities during the school year as well? And I'm just not up to speed on what we're offering during the school year. So how would you characterize their experience over the summer?
So you've led really nicely into my next report, which is the Marin Innovation Lab, and some of the things that I'll share are our kids going into those spaces and doing that work.
Put the $10 bill right.
There you go. We'll put but really what you're seeing and what I saw when I was there was the kids were engaged in reading curriculum, they were engaged in project-based learning, and that's really what we're striving for in this district. We don't just want summer learning to be, inspirational and engaging. We want everyday learning to be that. And I think that from what I've seen, that's definitely the mindset that we had with those Camp University kids carries over into the school year.
And then just in the mornings, it's the curriculum, and in the afternoon is the activity.
Yes.
It's still the case that
Yes.
way, yeah. So it's they're not at the pool all day.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Work hard, play hard.
Right. Okay. Nobody else? We're all good? Okay. Again, this is just a report that we do at the end of each summer, so I appreciate you bringing that forward.
No trouble.
And sharing the results and the outcomes, so thank you.
And then I'll transition, with your permission, into the next report.
Yeah. that'd be
Which
great.
is the New Media Learning Center. The New Media Learning Center, which I believe the board gets to have a field trip there in the near future. But the Renovation Lab, we asked them for an executive summary over to just really gauge how many of our students had the opportunity to go there, what activities they were involved in. You have that before you, of course, and we had 2,085 of our students have the opportunity to go over there. The superintendent and I got to tour the facilities recently, and they're really looking at augmented reality, virtual reality, digital media arts, coding, makerspace activities for those students. It's an exciting space, and we're really happy to be hosting them. Yancy and I are kind of working with them to make sure that our MOUs are in place and that we're getting what we need from that relationship. We do have an MOU that says Novato Unified gets first access, and so we want to make sure that that continues and make sure that our teachers and our schools are taking advantage of that opportunity and leveraging that relationship to its maximum potential. So I'm hopeful that next year it will see even more than that 2,000, but it's an exciting space, and it really gives our students an opportunity to look at those 21st century jobs and have those skills. One thing that I think is quite interesting that they were able to bring online this summer is they have a G elective for students now. So high school students who are looking for that G elective can do that through the Marinnovation space and have the opportunity to get some of that digital media and coding and overview that goes onto their college applications, and that's kind of a weekend and a summer class. So we're hopeful that we'll see more and more of our Novato students take advantage of that opportunity to pick up that extra elective on their transcripts.
Trustee Miller?
So I had the opportunity 6 months ago to spend time with a group that was looking at this kind of technology, and one of them is Rosendon Electric, and they're an electrical contractor. They wire big buildings, transformers and lights and switches and power. I mean, they're an industrial electrician, just like WBE here is in Novato. And their CIO, Chief Information Officer, is looking at virtual reality. Currently, their field foremen carry iPads. They don't carry computers, and they've moved all their work to an iPad interface, so there's less and less paper. And this is a national company. And their next step in moving forward is to have the blueprints, which are actually developed by Autodesk, a tool Autodesk provides, to, instead of being displayed on a flat surface like this, they'll display them using VR headsets. And so their foreman can look at a floor of a building and see where the wiring is supposed to go around the air conditioning ducts and the geometry that's complicated in the building using a VR model.
Wow.
So soon, he's going to come up and visit once this site is up and running and we're able to show him. But we're going to be able to work with that level of industrial implementation. And that means you don't just need VR because you're going to college or you got a white-collar job.
Yep.
VR is, in fact, being embedded in the construction trades and the three-dimensional trades, if it's an oil refinery or if it's a building or if you're building a ship. Those kinds of tools are going to be the way people interact because this kind of personal device interface is getting so much more powerful. So I'm very excited that Novato's at the front of this, and it's maybe another 5 years before this, finally starts happening. But it's coming. It's coming fast. The devices are getting much more powerful on the internet. Connectivities, the LTE-5 is getting much faster in terms of going to be able to receive large amounts of data. So.
And you make such a great point, and it's, kind of onerous to put that responsibility onto our teachers to stay cutting edge on all this. But really, that's one of the things that our relationships with the Marinnovation Lab is we are working with industry professionals who are at that cutting edge and able to really cast that vision for us and help bring all of us into that realm. So thank you.
When our district actually does, has a green screen on their desk where they're, maybe Yancy still does, but keying financial data. The world's changing.
Yep. We want our students to be prepared for those jobs.
Okay, anybody else with questions? No? Okay, Trustee Nell.
Not to put, words in Trustee Milrick's mouth, I would never do that, but I do think it's important to, I just want to emphasize the point that things like the virtual reality to start picking this up at a young age is going to be really important to me. You mentioned some examples. It's certainly taking off in our industry where we're basically with an assembly line, operation of machinery, an ability for trainees or and individuals to look at schematics in a whole different lag that solves problems so much quicker versus the old-fashioned flip to an index, go to that page, try to assemble that. So I think we're doing the right thing by exposing our young people to this. So.
Yep, and how extraordinary to have it in our backyard. Truly.
All right, nobody else? All right, thank you so much.
Thanks for the
Appreciate
support.
it. All right, actually, but Jim, before you go, I want to do our blue card, if you don't mind. Anna, would you mind coming up? And then for time purposes, you're not here till... So we're going to take the consent item. This was 10C, the public comment for that. And we'll do it now before we go into the rest of our discussion action items. If that's okay with the board, sorry, I forgot to check. Okay. Can I leave at 9? No. Okay, thanks for letting me know. Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much. I appreciate that
Yes,
change in agenda, so thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Salem, and you may or may not recognize me. It's a little harder without the young people I am normally with, but I was here almost at, I think, 85% of the board meetings last year supporting the student reps. I work for the Youth Leadership Institute, and I'm here today to talk about the SRO program. I don't have any young people with me because school hasn't started, but I'm here because I have a few kind of questions and concerns that I'd like the board to think through. I actually had a really great conversation with Leslie and Superintendent Hogaboom today, this afternoon, kind of about the SRO program. I highlighted my concerns. Everyone was very receptive, but I did want to just flag some of that for the board, just so you can hear a little about where I'm coming from and where I think some of the young folks I work with are coming from too when they hear about the School Resource Officer program. So I understand that the intention behind the program is to make students feel safe and comfortable and secure on campus, youth and staff and families. Unfortunately, I don't think that's always the intent with law enforcement. Not all young people and families have the same experience with law enforcement, and so it's not a guaranteed safety assurance, right? That's just kind of the world we live in, and that's unfortunate, but that's the reality of it. We've had 20 years of SROs on campus across the country, and there's very mixed research about whether or not that actually makes young people safer. We do have some evidence to actually say that it introduces young people to the criminal justice system at a much earlier rate than otherwise might happen. And so that kind of comes with some of my concerns. We know that law enforcement in general, and this is nothing against NPD or the SROs that they have chosen. This is not about anyone individually. This is about systems. But we know law enforcement in general will cite and arrest more people of color, more queer people, and with young people, more students with disabilities. And that is just a kind of across the board. That has ended up getting cited and arrested more often. It's also people who end up getting suspended more often too, right? That's just part of the natural flow. So when you change the different kinds of interventions, those disparities that happen in interventions are gonna keep translating over to the new way of engaging. But unfortunately, when you deal with law enforcement, there are more consequences than a simple suspension rate, right? You can get arrested, you can get caught up in the criminal justice system, and it can be a cycle that actually brings in young people that we don't want to see, and it has a disproportionate impact for students of color, queer students, and students with disabilities, which goes against a lot of the work, the equity work, that the school district has invested so much time in, and so that's why I wanted to flag it. My main concern, since this is already happening, it's going forward, that's what's on the table, is around how are we determining effectiveness? This is the first year we're bringing it back. What does effectiveness look like for Novato Unified as well as Novato PD? And those might be different things. In previous districts I've worked at, and there have been, citations have been used as the effectiveness measure to justify existence, saying we've had 400 citations that shows that we've done a good job. And that cannot be, that seems very clear to me that's not what Novato PD's intention is at all. I think we're all on the same page, but let's actually let's name what our metrics are gonna be so we can measure those. And let's determine what our effectiveness and our outcomes are gonna be, what we hope our outcomes will be now before the program goes forward, before the program is implemented. I also have some concerns around the common young people and families not differentiating between ICE in the SROs. I think that's a hard one to reasonably ask people to differentiate between those two. And that's something I raised, and we've talked about how do we communicate out that that's not, Novato PD isn't actually even working with ICE, but that's still gonna be, we've had ICE raids close to our school sites last year. That is gonna be a very real concern for people. How are we making sure families and young people feel safe, and especially our undocumented students and the students who are more likely to be not as engaged within the school community in general. We don't need to add another reason for them to feel uncomfortable. And that kind of goes across the board for not just documented students, but students of color and queer students and students with disabilities. So sorry, I kept going. Yeah, but those are just my concerns, and I really am excited to work with Lesson Superintendent Hogaboom and all of you on how to figure out how do we measure this effectively and how do we get on the same page so those disincentives.
Appreciate
don't
you
happen.
bringing that forward to us and letting
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this was item 10C, and this was approval of the MOU with the City of Novato for school resource officers. It was a staff report at our previous board meeting, and now it's just bringing it forward for approval. So I do need. Okay, so we have first by trustee Millerick, second by trustee Nell. Are you?
I have a discussion.
Okay.
But I'll wait a second.
Is there a second for this? Trustee Mack is a second. Okay. Trustee Nell.
So my intention is to support the MOU. As some of you know, I've had reservations about just adopting an SRO program, to have an SRO program, because of our experience with them in the past. Our speaker tonight brought to light some of the issues, but essentially I think what the biggest concern is the resource that they provide to us, our schools, and its effectiveness. And I will be watching this carefully and expecting us to come up with a measurement. Now, the MOU tonight talks about evaluation, and it talks about evaluation of the particular officers involved, but tonight's speaker does bring up the question, how are we going to know if this is really working for us? So I guess that'll be an ongoing discussion, and I'd invite comments from the superintendent on it. I think that we have a new police chief with the correct intentions in mind. I think his method of community policing is appropriate and a good fit for Novato. So some of the concerns that were brought forward, I think this is an opportunity for all of us to generate a new kind of policing effort, especially when it comes to our young people in schools. So again, I think we need to make sure we're working that this program be successful, that we don't just implement it and forget about it. I also think it's important to mention that we sort of have our own law enforcement resource that we pay privately that's been very successful over the years, and I think that hybrid and work, that is another opportunity for our own hired employees to be working with the police department and further integrating a positive outcome. So I think that on the shape of it, this is a good idea, and that we're going to do it differently, and that we're going to be policing, bringing community policing in the future, and we have all the right people in place. So I want to support it, but it is something that I think we should be paying attention to on a regular basis. And unless I missed it, unless there is something in the MOU or was stated earlier, my question for the superintendent is, how will we be evaluating the effectiveness as far as it as a resource for our schools and their students?
So it's not in the details of that are not in there. It says we'll work together with the principals as well as the school resource officers as well as the police chief. So Anna brings up some good points, and we haven't specifically said what that is. So we'll need to work together on what that is. Our plan right now is to meet about once a month with the school resource officers and the principals and kind of check in and see how the whole thing's working. So it is a work in progress, and some of those concerns we will bring up, and I think it's a great idea to be clear about what does success look like. Then we haven't really defined that as clearly as we need to, so we will go back and do that over the next month.
So I appreciate that, and having an understanding of the situation, I was just would request of the board that maybe we ask this to be brought in a couple, 3 months.
Yes.
See what they've worked out.
That's what I was gonna suggest.
I might add, I was looking for like, who are the positions who work for the district that are gonna be working with you on the evaluation? I mean, are those principals? Are those counselors? Are those sort of the stakeholders involved? And so as part of this follow-up report in whatever amount of time the superintendent deems necessary, I'm hoping that it'll include the comments or an opportunity for students and different individuals within our communities to comment on the evaluation, the success, whether it is working for them or not. So hopefully that would be part of the report. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I would like, and it's maybe not 3 months, but I think we need to give it some time to get going. So maybe halfway through the school year, or even towards the end of the school year in the spring, a report with the SROs and maybe North Bay Security.
Yep.
The two of them come with a staff report.
May I?
Yes, yeah.
So I think the real question is even bigger than it's been raised by the audience and Trustee Nell. Our students need to understand how to interface with the entire legal criminal justice system, from you meet on the street to how does the sheriff and the court system work, and how does the entire system operate. Some of our students end up in the juvenile justice system or the adult justice system later in life. We've got a model in this district that does a restorative justice with the intention of modifying behavior and averting a deeper conflict. I would love to see that model, but the fact is there are going to be some human beings who will end up in the criminal justice system appropriately. And I want to make sure that we look at that whole model, not just the SRO standing at the front of the line who we are interfacing with, that we look deep into that structure and figure out how we can best serve our students, everything from the SRO through the district attorney, and make sure we have a model that's appropriate. And that's, some of that work has to be done at Jim Hogaboom's level, administrative, to make sure we've got standards and expectations that are well-formed, clear through to the court system. And so I think it's an important thing for us to take on. This would be a great start. This is a good place to start. That's where the front of the line is. So,
Yeah.
But I think it's going to take us more than a meeting, or I think it's going to take us some years to impact that system.
All right,
Comment?
so,
Can I-
okay, yes. Trustee Scott.
Jim, can you clarify with the MOU, is it for a specific time period?
Well, the MOU is put in
Something?
place with basically, we have the first year to see how it's going. That's really what we're looking at.
And
So we are not putting, we obviously don't have any financial skin in the game right now. I mean, the city's paying for these 2 officers the first year. And so really the pilot is to see how it's going, see how it's working, figure out what the responsibilities are between North Bay Security and the police department. So it really is, I'm not sure technically if it's longer than a year, but really it will just be 1 year, because after that you'll have to decide if you want to pick up the other, the expectation from the city is they're funding these 2 positions right now, but that the school district will pick up I think it was $140,000 next year. Well, that's predicated on how it goes. So it's really meant to be 1 year. I'm not sure if it exactly says it's longer than that, but obviously we're going to have to bring it back to you after 1 year anyway.
And I'm sorry, may I ask one more question? Okay, so I wasn't here when this was presented, so forgive me. Was there a need? Was there something with North Bay Security that they couldn't fill a need, that we're now needing this piece, or was this just?
Yeah,
I'm trying to understand the need.
The need is that basically what Chief McGill is a big proponent of school resource officers. He's had them in Truckee and in all of his other school districts, and he gave us a report that showed that basically we as a school district were using the equivalent of, I believe, 2 full-time officers now anyway, just in terms of the number of calls when his police officers were having to go over to our schools. And when they tracked that time, it came out to 2 police officers. And so instead of having to pull those police officers out of their neighborhoods and whatever their normal routes are, it's better to have 2 full-time people that are assigned to our district that can get to know the students, get to know the staff, maybe be more responsive to what's happening at the schools. Again, get to know students in a different way, so that they can maybe do some prevention, so it's not just calling the police when we need to book some kid for drugs or some other situation like that. So that's really, and the idea would be that they would be stationed primarily at the 2 high schools. They would also help out with Marin Oaks and with our 2 middle schools. And so what we're trying to work out then again is when do principals use the school resource officers? When do they use North Bay Security? So we've got a matrix that we're kind of looking at. So that was the purpose, though, is to really use the school resource officers as more of a preventative matter.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
And the MOU is one school year.
Yep.
It says it on the last page. And then just for Trustee Scott, maybe go back, and this is just suggest and review the last board meeting when Chief McGill was here, and he just, so just an idea for you. Okay, so if there's no further discussion.
Just a quick question.
Trustee Gila.
So earlier in this meeting, I asked the question about how we're going to keep an eye on progress for the data and the SROs. And so, but one thing I didn't ask was, remind me again, when the information that we get, or the city's hiring them, but so is the data our data, or is it the police data? Of whatever happens, is it the police, or is it our who gets to have those records?
I'm not
or
sure.
Reports, any reports, anything that happens throughout the year. Who is it? The cities or the police department or NUSD that keeps record of everything?
Yeah, that's what I would think.
I mean, I think we would share the incident both ways. I mean, they would probably keep official track of what Anna said, like if there's a citation that's delivered, those kinds of things. But we'll also have to keep track of, like, I don't know, how many students are they seeing on a weekly basis? How are they spending their time? Are they visiting classes? So there's not really a clear answer to that. They will keep, some data, we'll have other data, so we'll be sharing that data together. We haven't even determined exactly what data that it's going to be yet anyway, so it's hard to say.
Okay, great. Keep us posted. Thank you.
Trustee Miller?
So this conversation came up years past. When an officer is interviewing a student, they are doing police work, but if they're on a student campus, we're in parenthesis responsibility for that student, and that conversation of when can we insist that we're in the room and acting as the parent for the student before the parent gets on campus. How does that work? And there's some questions that don't come up with North Bay. They're not a law enforcement organization. They're contractors to us, but we should brief ourselves on how that works to make sure we understand where the rules are and how the boundaries are, because some of it will be police reports that we wouldn't have access to legally. The parent might, and some of it will be school records, but we should refresh ourselves on that boundary. Maybe talk to our legal counsel and have the 2 principals, Jim and you, and leadership just come up to speed to make sure you know what the rules are, because they are complicated and confusing, to say the least.
So, yeah, I agree with that, but we're already doing that now. They're already coming onto our campus for different, they're called over there, quite often now, so that wouldn't really change. And there are rules, as you mentioned, about that you have to notify parents ahead of time. You have to have them be there before the police officer can talk to them. So we will make sure we're up to speed on that, but we're kind of doing that now whenever we call somebody over.
Okay, so we have a first by trustee Millick and a second by trustee Mack. All in favor for approving this MOU for the SROs? Okay, 7-0. It's a one-year MOU, yes. Thank you. All right, back on to our discussion action item, the coherence. Well, that was a discussion action, but our first item was coherence consultant partnerships.
So coherence is one of our favorite words because we want to make sure that the different district initiatives we have, that they're all working together. And to be quite honest, there were times when we would use some of our consultants in the past and we weren't all on the same page. So what I'm bringing before you is 4 contracts with 4 different organizations and partners that I will talk to you about. These are all identified in our LCAP. We've been working with well, the newest one is Nancy Dome and Epic Education. That's just been 1 year, but National Equity Project, you know, we've been working with since before I got here. Clark Consulting started before I got here, and then the Buck Institute's been about 3 years. So these are organizations that provide services that we're not able to do ourselves. They are consulting services, and one of our agreements is, and one of our main purposes, that we'll work with them to try to decrease the level of support over time so that they help build our own capacity through helping do trainings and coachings of our own staff. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we're working together. And so, for example, you know, in terms of our equity work, National Equity Project and Epic Education. National Equity Project works with our secondary schools. Epic Education works with our elementary schools, but we want to make sure that they know what each other are doing. So one of the problems we had in the past was we weren't always on the same page. So we have these coherence meetings about once a quarter, and those have been really, really helpful. So all the representatives from each of these organizations meet with key staff. We talk about you know, the main purposes of the district, which is our graduate profile and our equity work, and how those organizations are helping us to move forward. They hear from each other. It helps us sometimes to reiterate, that the North Star in our district is the graduate profile, and how are the different groups helping us to do that. One example where we weren't all pulling on the same page was probably 2 years ago, where the Buck Institute was providing training to principals on facilitation skills and how to do all that. It was like a 4-part or 5-part kind of series for all of our principals and assistant principals. And then the National Equity Project was giving us training on facilitating for equity. And so they were both really good trainings, but they were both going on at the same time, and we should have make them work together because they work for us to do those trainings together. So that was one example of us not being coherent and not working together. And, you know, these consultants do work, we're paying them, and so we are basically kind of making them work together and know how each other are working together. So those meetings are actually pretty exciting, and I think we all learn a lot from them. So you have the 4 different contracts here tonight. I'm going to talk about a couple of them, and Leslie is probably the expert on Clark Consulting. She's been trained by them extensively, and Jen is probably more of an expert than I am on the Buck Institute. So I'm going to give a little overview about a couple of these, and then I'll turn it over to them if you guys have further questions. So Epic Education, Nancy Dome has been working with the P3 group for, I think, about the past 3 or 4 years. She came and talked to you guys, as you know, at one of our retreats last year. So we hired her when we brought our other 4 schools on last year to join the P3 work. We brought her on to work with the equity team. So all of our schools, elementary and secondary, have an equity team. They do an equity walkthrough. She does a lot of culturally responsive teaching practices. And so this work this year, she started that last year. I think they meet 3 or 4 times with their equity teams and with the principals with Nancy. And then she does some follow-up with them individually out at the school sites as well, and talks to them of it and does some coaching about how does that equity team lead that work forward at the school site. So basically that's continuing this year. And at the end of this year, then the new 4 schools will be kind of up to speed with where the other schools are. And so the contract will look a little bit different next year. So this is really to bring those 4 schools to the same level of kind of training and expertise as the schools that are already in the program. You also saw the National Equity Project proposal. They have just completed, as Derek and Maria said, and thank you guys for going to that. Part of our agreement last year actually was to put on a Leading for Equity Institute with our high schools, but it was really hard to find a time to do that when we could get all our high school teachers there. So we finally landed on the 16th and 17th of August, and so it was a majority of teachers were there, but we had a few classified there, a few parents there, and in San Marin we had a few students there. So we had about 35 people, and again, the whole purpose of that Leading for Equity Institute is to raise awareness about listening skills and your own implicit bias and your white privilege and all that. So that's really to help kickstart and get some more momentum going, so that was really helpful. This year, the National Equity Project will be working with all of our equity teams to kind of figure out where they are. But really, we've been looking at Zaretta Hammond's work on culturally responsive teaching in the brain. All the elementary principals have already had study sessions on that, but those practices will be brought to the high school teams. So we're kind of bringing equity down to some more practical training in terms of what does culturally responsive teaching look like, which looks like how do our teachers become partners and allies with our students, and some more specific practices. So that's really the equity work. And in terms of the Buck Institute, I'll give a quick overview. If you have questions, Jen can answer those. You see what's in there. But essentially what we're doing there, the Buck Institute combined with Envision Learning. Envision Learning is the one that has the defensive portfolios. Envision has those 4 charter schools where all those kids who try to get on to college. And Justin Wells has been our consultant who knows a lot about performance assessment. So he helped run our district leadership team meetings last year. So they're actually coming together, and what we're going to do is invite teams from maybe 6 or 7 schools. So it's an invitation for a grade level team in elementary, or maybe hopefully an interdisciplinary team in secondary. They would come, we would have a launch, and they would really guide them towards developing deeper projects. So everybody's been trained, in PBL 101, we need to help them go further. So we would bring all those teams together. They would do some PBL 201 workshops. They would help maybe work with those individual teams if they were taking a day to develop a project. And they would also help our 2 elementary teams. One's from San Ramon and one's going to be from Pleasant Valley to pilot student-led conferences. So that's the work that the Buck Institute will be doing together with Envision Learning. And the last one is Kevin Clark Consulting. Initially, this is the one contract that actually went up instead of down, and that's because initially Leslie was going to be our coach. She'd spent, I think, a good year, maybe year and a half getting trained, and it takes a while to get up to speed. She also taught in our newcomer program during the summer, so she taught a lot of the Kevin Clark Consulting training practices and is well equipped in terms of knowing what that is. So she was going to be our coach, but when she became our equity EL coordinator, then we didn't have a coach, and it would take too long to get somebody up to speed. So really, these services are expanded. We're going to use the Kevin Clark consultants that are already coming here to do a lot of that. Is another, our high school ELD teachers is a third, and then district and site administrators. So those are the 4 areas that they'll be working with, and you can see the number of days. So that's one where, because we don't have our own coach, we saved the money of not having that EL coach, and now we're using that money to work with Kevin Clark Consulting. So those are our 4 contracts, and if you have specific questions, we'll try to answer those.
Board members, Trustee Millerick and then Trustee Nell.
So I want to make sure as we move towards project-based learning, we have across the district with good success. I want to make sure as we take the next step, we put in measures and controls. This is one of those things where I don't want the words to get ahead of the actual benefits students receive in the classroom, the relationship between the instructor in the classroom and their ability to manage those projects, and that there's learning outcomes for the students that are measurable and specific, and take them forward on a learning path towards the 6 C's as well as their academic goals. So we're taking the next step. I just want to make sure we have the metrics in place to control it.
Trustee Nell?
Well, I think this is an opportunity from my perspective to commend the superintendent for, I like bringing it together, the cohesion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this has been I think something that we've all acknowledged, that we've all been through a lot over the last 5 years or so, with the adoption of Common Core, the changeover to the local control funding formula, the iterations of the LCAP. I mean, we now have a final template. This is like the third final template that the state has given us to work with. So there's been a lot going on, and so we sought out help, independent help, and a lot of this equity work that you hear about, and not necessarily the project-based learning, though that's a big part of it. It has to do with the equity imperative that we put together, and we were all doing the best that we could. And in addition to these programs, we had adoptions going on. So essentially, and there's been some comments about, like, the dollars. I hate to bring up the dollars in this particular case of the equity argument, but it is our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we are spending our money wisely and we're effective, and that this is an area that needed some attention. And I want to thank you for focusing on it and to bringing them together and to trying to get everyone to work together towards the same goal. And you and your staff are to be commended, and I look forward to a successful and effective year of learning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Nell. Anybody else? No? Okay. Yes.
I want to make sure as we move forward on the project-based learning that we are engaging with the Buck Institute and that program and the reputation it's built. Envision has done a great job in the communities that it serves in the South Bay and in the East Bay, but Envision ran a school in Novato that was a charter school that was not successful. And I want to make sure we all remember that 10 years ago, perhaps now, but there was an issue, and we need to make sure we look at that and be able to look at our community in the eye and say, we understand that it didn't work then, and we have a plan now to make it work successfully now, and that we have we've thought through that process, and we understand the differences, and we can explain it to anybody that asks.
All right, so this item is an action item, and approval of these 4 contracts is what you normally would put them on consent, and we'd approve each one individually, but now.
Well, I'll move the recommendation to approve all 4 contracts.
Right. Thank you. So we have first by Trustee Nell and a second by Trustee Aguila. All in favor? 7-0. Okay, this is our 45-day revision for our combined general fund budget. It's our next item.
All right, thank you, Superintendent Hogaboom, and board. All right, thank you. So we're bringing to you tonight the 45-day budget revision. Ed Code requires within 45 days of the state budget being enacted around June 30th that the district approve a budget update to any material changes to its budget. So we had some of this information at the June 19th budget adoption, because we knew most of the details of the state budget, but now we have some calculations of the actual impact of those. There are 3 main impacts of that. There is a reduction in one-time funding. As you noted, this governor has for many years been adding varying levels of one-time funding. And so we did see a significant reduction from the proposed amount of one-time funds to be given to the district of $1.15 million. Those funds at the state level got transferred into other priorities by the legislature. The upside to that was, for us, $450,000 of those one-time money was moved to ongoing funds under the LCFF, so that offsets the loss of the one-time money, as well as a smaller increase of $75,000 to lottery funds based on updated estimates in the adopted state budget. So the net impact for 18-19 alone is roughly a reduction in fund balance of around $650,000. But to be clear, there are some positive impacts in the out years because the state budget turned some one-time funding into a lesser amount of ongoing funding. So our 3-year, multi-year projection would look very similar to the budget that was adopted on June 19th, if you looked at it over a 3-year basis. Also, I wanted to give the board an update. There were some discussions at the June 19th board meeting around looking at potentially, due to some concerns in the out year, especially, that we potentially look at reconvening the Budget Advisory Committee to look at potential budget solutions in the out years, as well as a request for a reserve policy and to do potentially some community outreach to allow them to know the reasons behind our out year budget potential issues, very similar to the issues that came up last year. So in terms of that, the reserve policy we are working on, and we will bring that back. My recommendation around the Budget Advisory Committee and the community outreach is to hold off until the September 18th board meeting. We will have 2 pieces of information at that point that I believe are critical as we move forward. The first of which is that we will have basically our final enrollment numbers for this year. As this board knows, we are funded based on our number of students, and our adopted budget projects a reduction in 110 students, which really drives our out-year revenue. Our out-year projections will be very different if that number is 200 less students or 0 less students. So we will know those information by that September 18th meeting. The other thing that obviously is very important is the September 18th meeting is where we will find our ending fund balance with the unaudited actuals. And so we will know our fund balance going into the 2018-19 year. As always, fund balance is just one time. It's like a bank account with your savings, but it is important to know in terms of where we are in that, and especially as we move forward with formalizing a reserve policy in this year. With that, I will open it up to questions, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Board, anybody? Okay, Trustee Millerick and then Trustee Cooper.
I think waiting until September is fine. My concern, a budget advisory committee would be valuable. It's a useful tool. But my comments 6 months ago were there's decisions we're going to have to make that are stronger than that kind of community group has been able to bring to us. Historically, in tough budget times, we've talked about having one administrator cover 2 elementary schools. We've talked about closing elementary schools. We've talked about stripping the vice principals off the high school campuses and significantly reducing the administrative staff. We've talked about changing the student load in any one class to increase the loading onto our teaching professionals. I don't think those are issues and others like that are a community group can handle. I think they end up finally being at this board. It's a useful first step, but I think given that we're still running in the red, I think this all comes back to us pretty fast. So I'm happy for the process, but I think the outcome is we need to be ready at this table to have a hard conversation. Thank you.
Trustee Cooper?
Yancy, my question revolves around state revenues. Is there any idea when the governor specifically is going to release any state facilities bond money?
So they have started in drips and drabs.
That's about, yes.
is to give out the state facility funding. But you will see in the coming months applications for this district, mostly in modernization state funds, as well as at the last meeting, the board approved that we go back out for additional CTE funding. And so we will continue to move forward with that. I think it's just to be clear, to answer your original question, in terms of our cash flow, I don't assume any state funding for our facility projects in the short term. I do believe that if the projects are approved, that, you know, in 3, 5 to 7 years, we will see those fundings, but you will never see a cash flow that I put out with state funding on it unless I have a letter that is approving the cash payment to us.
Good. Thank you for the update.
Trustee Nell.
Okay, so I'm glad they forced us to take a look at this by law, because it basically is continues to be blinking red. And, you know, unless we can drum up an extra 200 students or customers or something along those lines, we have a spending problem. So, and I don't mean that we've been reckless at spending, but essentially this is the amount of money we're going to be receiving, so we have to figure out to live within our means. So going forward, you talk about the Budget Advisory Committee, which is a good idea, and I do ultimately agree with Trustee Miller that this board will be the one making some tough decisions. But I don't. But at the same time, I'm wondering: were you planning to discuss cuts of the type that Trustee Miller mentioned, like closing schools, eliminating vice principals? Or is that the format that you intend to have at this meeting, or are we too soon to say? Because I know I have seen some agendas for the Oversight Committee, and we've never been in this. With you in particular, Nancy, the situation where you're putting out there serious long-term operating cuts in the way of ongoing costs.
So I think the first thing to say is that we made the first step moving into this year, into 2019. You know, we reduced over $2 million in operating expenses moving into this year, which is important. And I agree with you, we don't necessarily have a spending problem. The problem sometimes comes from the state level, which is increasing our pension costs by $1 million a year. That's not obviously coming, those are not local decisions that are coming. But like a lot of districts, we are in declining enrollment. And so along with those STRS and PERS increase and really the projected flattening of state income over the next couple of years, we are going to need to potentially look at those hard decisions. But it is key that although we have enrollment projections, they are just that. They are projections. And, you know, we've got a dual immersion program that's starting up, drumming interest potentially at the kindergarten level. We saw huge levels of interest in San Marin this year and the STEM program, and it's really building, and interdistrict transfers were increasing. And so, you know, I am anxious, but I am excited to see where our numbers end up, and, you know, with the students arriving on Thursday. So I think that really our first number is going to be coming in at that enrollment and knowing where we are. Losing 100 students is over $1 million for us. And so whether those students are there on the first day or not on the first day is going to be key. So I don't mean to duck your question, but I believe on the September 18th meeting, I will be able to give you a better idea of whether, you know, we need to cut around the edges or, you know, with some pruning shears, or we need to look at other matters. So I think that's going to be the best. We have the state revenue numbers now. That's pretty much locked in. in terms of, we have the state budget. As soon as we have enrollment and we finally calculate our teaching staff numbers, that's going to be the next time I can give you a strong update.
So I appreciate that detailed explanation, and I respect the process, and I completely agree that those things have to come first. My question was about our advisory committee and the types of information that you're going to be sharing with them. So you're probably not prepared tonight to present that in more detail, but I think that's a question that's coming from this trustee for more detail as you get that process started.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think just to answer your question then, the cuts that were made last year, they were difficult cuts, and they, and any cuts to our educational offerings is difficult, but they were going to be the easiest cuts that we're going to make. And so anytime we move forward potentially looking at having to make additional cuts, they are going to be more of the variety that Trustee Millerick was noting, things that are tougher to live with. We made the decisions of the things this year that we thought we could live with, and it'll get harder and harder as you go. But also, I think that's why I noted at the beginning that we made the first step last year in making those cuts now, because for 2018-19, because had we not made those cuts now, we would be looking at potentially draconian cuts moving into 2019-20.
All right, thank you.
All right, anybody else? No, but I think that's a good point. Do we want, as a board, and I think we'll have that, figure that out on the 18th, of convening the budget advisory or making those conversations here at the board table. That's our decision, and we can talk about that on the 18th based on the outcome of the unaudited actuals and the enrollment. So, all right, so this is a discussion action item. Approve revisions made to the 18-19 combined general fund budget, the 45-day revision is what it's typically called. So
I would move.
okay, so a first by Trustee Cooper, a second by Trustee Aguila. All in favor? 7-0. Thanks, Yancy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yancy.
You're up again with the grand jury report.
You get me 3 times in a row, so I'll try to be brief on this. In June, the Marin County Grand Jury issued a report around school yellow bus transportation. As we were noting about budget issues around 10 years ago, the state cut back and then really cut away all requirements and funding for home to school transportation in the state. They gave local entities the flexibility to use that in any way they wanted, and now it's been rolled into the local control funding formula, which we see. This district, along with almost all suburban districts around the state, severely cut back and pretty much cut back all yellow bus transportation. So the recommendation in the grand jury was for Marin Transit to take the lead in doing some work to create a committee to see if yellow bus service would be feasible in parts or all of the county. And so there were 2 specific recommendations that were in your packet, and basically those recommendations were for the school district to be part of a yellow school bus committee to look at different funding options, to look at different ways to coordinate, do those kind of things. So in our response, we noted that we would be happy to meet with Marin Transit. We've been meeting with Marin Transit 3 years ago when they did their study countywide. I've had several meetings with Marin Transit as we've moved and looked for other ways to help that, so we're happy to do that. With that, we'll be asking for approval of our responses to the 2 recommendations in the grand jury report.
All right. This is a discussion action. Yes, Trustee Millerick.
I'm fine to move on the report, but I have a question. And this is only because I ride a commuter bus and I hear this conversation. My understanding is our bus drivers are Novato school bus drivers are a member of a union. Golden Gate Transit drivers are a member of a union, but Marin Transit is not a unionized labor force. So I'd like to know the answer to that question as we begin to have this conversation, just so we understand the labor impacts.
Yeah, I do not know the status of their drivers, but I can get that to you and send it out to all trustees so they have that information.
All right, so we have a first by trustee Millerick. Okay, second by trustee Nell. All in favor? 7-0. Okay.
All
Last
right.
item.
Last item, the Special Education Efficiency Review. In 2017-18, the Budget Advisory Committee met for over 5 months and gave recommendations to this board. In February of 2018, the board took action on those recommendations that included about $1.5 million of budget solutions, as well as 2 additional recommendations for work to be performed in 2018-19. One of those recommendations was a special education efficiency review. And just to kind of remind the board, special education accounts for approximately 20% of the school district's budget. That's about $16 million. And of that $16 million, over 60% of it is not covered by funding from the state or federal government. So that's coming straight out of our LCFF or other local funds that we have to pay for that. That being said, we want to make sure, due to the complexities of federal law around special education, when we looked at a budget advisory committee, we didn't really feel it was appropriate for that committee to come in and say, potentially, what things we could do to be more efficient in the special education department. So we went out and we had discussions and meetings with a few different firms, and our recommendation is to go with School Services of California. School Services of California is the premier K-12 school consultancy agency. We have worked with them many times in the past. As about 2 years ago, we worked on a HR review that has been very successfully implemented in the district. I have worked with them personally in several districts, including a special education efficiency review before. And also included in the special education efficiency review is a programmatic review of the special education program. And I think that's important to note, because you can't just look at a special education program and say, well, here's the ways you could cut money out of the program. You really need to look at what our requirements are, what services that we want to be able to provide for our special education students. And so it will be 2 birds with 1 stone, but they'll do a program review, and then they use that to look into efficiency reviews of ways we can be more efficient and hopefully save some money in looking at that. And so they'll look at our placements of students outside of the school district. Could we serve them within our school district? They'll look at how we're running our classes, loading, how we're looking at aids. Could we be more efficient on certain things? They'll look at our transportation and, could we be more efficient on how we do servicing of the students' transportation. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on the special education review.
Trustee Nell. I could have guessed. No.
Maybe Trustee Scott had a comment. It's regrettable that we have to approach something like special education from a budgetary efficiency effectiveness. And I, for one, I'm fairly certain that the board, when it embarked on a desire to know more about our special education services and how they were managed in the district, it wasn't just about the money. We essentially wanted to know what was happening and how we were doing and how can we deliver pedagogy to this particular community. With that said, anytime you have 20% of your budget going in a particular direction, it is worthy to spend some time managing it and paying attention, certainly. And as long as I've been on this board, we have never done a specific detailed study on how we are organized around special education in the district, and there's so much overlapping methods and ed code and systems with the county and the state. It's in fact there was a large study done by the governor, quickly rejected by the legislature. Though there were some good things in it, they threw the whole thing out, which was sad, unfortunately. So with that said, I mean, I intend to support the effort. I think we need to go forward, but I just think it's fair to say to the special education community and the community at large that this isn't all about trying to find ways to save money. It's about trying to deliver this education in a more modern and effective and concentrated way. And we may actually find out we need to spend more money. I mean, that seriously could be a recommendation. California School Services is an excellent organization. They're very active. They have served us in the past well, and I expect they will again. So I'll support the recommendation.
All right, so I do need a motion. Are you the first? Okay, Trustee Aguila is the first,
I'll second.
and Trustee Scott is the second. All in favor? 7-0. All right, so that concludes our meeting this evening. And so just a reminder for the board, typically we have our next meeting in a couple weeks, but instead this Saturday at 9 o'clock, be over at 931 C Street for our board retreat. And that's from 9 to noon. And we have a good agenda set up for us. And then the next Tuesday is our bond workshop beginning at 6 o'clock here. There's no closed session or anything like that, just 6 o'clock here. It'll be televised. Then our next regular scheduled board meeting is September 4th. And more details on that to come. So that's it. Meeting adjourned.